The WLGA are encouraging local authorities across Wales to adopt as early as possible the principles of the Future Generations Bill. In this short video, Peter Davis, Commissioner for Sustainable Futures, lays out the broad challenges for Wales, and we'll hear a response from Steve Thomas, Chief Executive at the WLGA.
Today is about the process of looking at the introduction of the Future Generations Bill, but it is also about the next step in what has been a journey in terms of sustainable development. July is the time when the bill will be introduced into the National Assembly. The context of today is to look at how we can lay the ground for introduction through a process of early adoption of the principles that are contained within the legislation. First of all, it's about the focus on long-term outcomes. I try and characterise this bill as introducing mechanisms that improve our governance for the long term. And one of the key mechanisms of improving governance for the long term is to set long-term goals. Now, those goals have been presented in draft form, the current thinking of what ministers think they might be, and we now have a national conversation, which is around, are those goals correct? Are they the sort of goals that we want for Wales? Can we build a shared ownership? Underpinned by measures of progress. So the legislation will require an incoming government to set the measures of progress against those goals. Important to say that the goals will be, the plan will be, to include them on the face of the bill. So these goals will need to be as good as they can be, because it's going to be built into the legislative process. So you've got the long-term focus underpinned by a set of governance principles: collaboration, integration, prevention, evidence-based, long-term focused and citizen-centred. And the establishment, as another mechanism, of the role that I play now, but it won't be me, on a statutory legal footing. So my role is a public appointment, but it could be got rid of tomorrow. It has no legal powers, it has no duties. What the bill is going to establish is a commissioner with clear legal powers and duties that will be the advocate for the long term, that will be the voice of future generations, so a commissioner for future generations.
From our point of view, the Williams report is out there, local government reorganisation is on the stocks, it's ready to fly. But the question is, how does it sit with the work that you're doing on the Future Generations Bill and any other bill, in effect? Because 23 bills currently apply into local government. My view is, on all the bills that you have, crack on with them and start to talk about demographics. Massive impact across social services, huge impact across social services. Climate change, Pembrokeshire, Ceredigion, Conway, look at those bills that you've had this year because of the storms. We're told that the storms and that sort of extreme weather is going to get worse. You know, that was 8 million quid this year. If that starts multiplying, what happens there? Energy security. Lots of local authorities in England starting to get into discussions about energy provided locally, trying to work out deals, trying to make sure we break up the big six monopolies. Public health. I notice as of last night, we now may have a duty on us to provide toilets. Isn't it an interesting idea, since we've been closing them down for the past 2 years? And part of the reason why we've been closing them down, or even keeping them open, is having a debate with the community about keeping these things open. Why do we need to provide them? Why don't we talk about community resilience? Why don't we talk about new models of service delivery? No, it seems that the answer in Wales is to legislate for everything. So no matter how well we manage to catch and prioritise key services, this will mean a significant reduction in the range and depth of services provided by local government. And because of that, the next period is not going to be about structures, it's going to be about managing demand. It's going to be about prevention. It's going to be about revisiting statutory obligations to encourage far more people, greater involvement of people in the design and implementation of local services. And real heresy, I'm sorry to say this so controversially, let's learn from England. They are experimenting with community budgets, they're experimenting with getting people into local authorities and actually growing the democratic voice into local budget setting. And I think we need to base long-term public service reform strategies in terms of themes which are different to structures and the usual stuff. We should be talking about responsibility, trust, partnership, those types of things. a much closer understanding of how people behave, what they want and what they need and what they aspire to. The other thing, there will be some reorganisation at some point. Politicians love reorganising, so you might as well take it for granted it will happen at some point. It will be 10, 12, whatever. But it also then begs the question, are we all going to build new civic centres when we do this? I think Powys had 3 left on the last reorganisation. The days of these big ugly monoliths, are gone, I think. The last reorganisation in the 1990s actually occurred before email. Think about that. The internet wasn't mainstreamed until 1999. So I think we've got to start thinking about things like agile working, like home working. It increases productivity. It makes sure that people are not on the roads.
So there are things the local authorities can do to actually build the resilience of their local economies, and that is about looking at this circular economy, building on there's also the foundational economy, where if you build your economy around the things that people need, around affordable housing, around sustainable transport, around local food production, around community-based care, these are all things that people in your area will always need. It's a much more stable, sustainable form of local economy to build your future on. So to conclude, we need to be planning long-term to reduce these risks. We need to be looking at how do we prevent some of these things happening, because they're not given, these trends. We can actually do things that minimise the impact. We can look at ways of managing demand and stopping things becoming excess demand in the future that we can't meet, and that is about things like working with partners in the business sector, in the other public bodies, and with communities, and we'll be hearing more about that in the course of today.